بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن يبتغي غير الإسلام دينا فلن يقبل منه وهو في الآخرة من الخاسرين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات بيجي محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. First of all, I'd like to thank the Intizamiya for inviting me, giving me this opportunity to come and once again speak to the gathering here. They asked me to deliver these 3 majalis in English, and inshallah Masaib will be in Urdu. This is probably after 14 years that I'm coming back here. So the first time that I came, it took me 14 years to come back. Let's see how long it takes the second time around. But with that said, there are many familiar faces, and my face complexion might have changed, but many of the elders in the community that are still, mashallah, are the same. I recognize. And alhamdulillah, this connection that we have through the Farsh Aza of Sayyid al-Shuhada is something which is irreplaceable and something which we endure a great deal and we cherish a great deal. And this is the reason from all walks of life you find people come and sit on this Farsh Aza. It's a tawfiq that is given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the reason only few are able to make it here. Without any tamheed, I was thinking as to in which direction or what should I choose as a topic of discussion, but I guess 3 nights we'll have 3 different discussions. As there's so much that I want to share. And of course, for my elders who are sitting over here, many of these things will be repetitive, redundant. You've been listening to majalis for many, many years, and you are a student of this Farsh Aza. We are all students of this Farsh Aza. The fact that I'm sitting here on the mimbar does not make me the fact that I am ustad of this Farsh Aza. No, I'm still, studying and learning and benefiting a great deal. But at the same time, when we come with this aqidat, we like to first and foremost give our condolences to Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. And at the same time, one of the maqsad and the purposes that we come and sit on this farsh, reminding ourselves of the musibat of Sayyid al-Shuhada, masaib of the family of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the tragedies of Karbala, which of course is something which is universal. And it's something by which we say that if it is not the reason, we would not have survived. The reason for our madhab to survive is this first shaza. And these aren't my words. These are the words of Imam Khomeini, for example, a faqih, an arif, a leader, who said this, in Muharram o Safar ast ke Islam ra zinda nigah dashte ast. It is this Muharram and Safar which has kept Islam alive. It is these majalis which have kept Islam alive. And if Islam has been kept alive because of this, you and I are also benefiting from it as well. Which brings me to the ayat that I recited for you from Surah Al Imran, ayat number 85. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah says, وَمَن يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا. Whoever follows a religion other than Islam, فَلَن يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. It will not be accepted from him. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. And such an individual is considered to be amongst the khasirin, amongst the losers on the Day of Judgment. Now there are many questions that might arise from this particular ayah. Does that mean Islam is very tang nazar? The deed of Islam is very narrow, tang nazari, where it does not accept anyone else. Islam denies, for example, pluralism. Islam says, my way or highway. Is that what Islam tells us? Because if you look at the literal translation of the ayat, that's what you get. Let me translate again. Whoever follows a deen other than Islam, it will not be accepted. And that person is amongst the losers. You hear this ayat, what do you get out of it? Islam is very narrow, or narrow-minded, for example. Here it requires us to dive into the ayat of Quran. Kalam Hakim cannot be without hikmat. Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the wise, is filled with wisdom. And therefore, diqqat nadari is intended and needed in order to understand the ayat of Quran. And that is the reason Prophet Islam said, Inni tarikun fikum at-taqalain. Kitab Allahi wa itrati ahl bayti. In tamassaktum bihima lan tadillu ba'di. He did not say, I'm leaving behind one. No, he said, I'm leaving behind two heavy things. And if you hold on to both of these two heavy things, then you will never go astray until you return back to me at the Hawd of Kawthar. So first and foremost, our aqidah is, Quran is not sufficient. Hasbuna Kitabullah is a false slogan which does not bear any fruits or does not have any validity. By all means, this sentence was uttered by one of the great companions of the Prophet. One of the Khulafa Rashideen uttered these words. That book of Allah is enough for us. Rasulullah has said it directly. No, book of Allah is not enough. With the same book, and I'll pose this question to our brothers and sisters in Islam, who say, well, Islam, Quran is enough, and that's it. Do you pray 5 times a day? Everybody says, sure, of course, we pray 5 times a day. He said, can you prove 2 rakat namaz from Quran? You will not be able to do so. Does that mean Hasbuna Kitabullah is good? Now, do you agree that Quran is enough for us? If Quran was enough, can you prove 2 rakat salat from Quran? I challenge you. If anyone can prove to me the 2 rakat namaz that we offer at Fajr, the Maghrib and Isha we just offered, if anyone can prove to me how to pray through Quran, that's a challenge. Quran mentions the timings of the prayers. Quran mentions the importance of prayer. Quran says, Aqim as-salat, establish the prayer, but doesn't say how. That how part is not mentioned in Quran. So that means if Kitab of Allah is enough for you, then you should stop praying. Another thing, fasting. Only a few ayat of Quran talk about fasting. Surah Baqarah from 183, 184, 185 talk about fasting. كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Or it says من الخيط الأبيض إلى الخيط الأسود. Eat and drink outside of these two times. But all the other wajibat that are accordance with the Shariat, they're not mentioned in the Quran. What breaks your fast, invalidates your fast, is not mentioned in the Quran. And all the other intricacies of this fast, which we start learning as soon as the month of Ramadan comes, is not mentioned in the Quran. So that means you should stop fasting, because Quran doesn't talk about it. When it comes to Hajj, one of the greatest of the ibadat, there's an entire surah called Surah Al-Hajj. وَعَذِّمْ فِي النَّاسِ, and go ahead, Hazrat Ibrahim was ordered, tell people to come and perform this Hajj. But the ahkam and the manasik of Hajj are not nearly mentioned in this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are a few examples, brothers and sisters. They're not mentioned in Quran. So then why this Quran says, مَا فَرَّطْنَ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. We didn't leave anything out of this book. There's not a wet and dry that is not mentioned in the Quran. Moulana, isn't this contradiction? Again, if you go to the path of غَيْرِ أَهْلِ Bayt, you said this is a contradiction. But you take Quran from the path of Ahlul Bayt, you say, oh, there's no contradiction. And I'll prove it to you. These things are not mentioned because Allah wanted dependency of mankind to Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Quran cannot be sufficient. In fact, not only the Quran cannot be sufficient, Quran can also be misleading at sometimes. You know Battle of Siffin? Quran misled many people. They saw the ayat of Quran and the para of Quran raised on the spears. What do they say? Well, let's not engage in fight with these people. They are carrying Quran. What did Quran do at that time? Misled people. They left Quran in Natiq for Quran in Samit. They left Quran which spoke for Quran which did not speak. So there you go, Quran misled. Similarly, one observation living in this part of the world. When you have a colleague, a friend who wants to learn more about Quran, or rather wants to learn more about Islam, what is the first book that you offer him? Quran. That's a grave mistake, brothers and sisters. You don't need to give them Quran as the first thing that they read. It's a heavy book. You and I are still trying to understand this Quran. You want the newcomer to understand this Quran? And then that too, a person who's going to be reading it with much thorough attention that you and I have ever read. They'll be focusing on it as we have never focused on it before. They'll be criticizing the ayat, reading it critically. You and I have not read Quran critically. So then what are you going to do? What if this newcomer comes to you after reading Quran saying, what about this ayat of Quran which says, kill these infidels, run after them, slay them until they're submissive? You'll respond by saying, oh, there's an ayat in Quran like this? There's an ayat in Quran that says, kill the infidels, run after them, slay them until they're submissive? No, I don't believe there's an ayat in Quran like that. Here you go, chapter 9, this ayat right here. You say, oh, this is the first time I'm seeing this ayat. What are you going to do at that point? Oh, when they come to you and say that, look, Quran belittles women. The longest ayat of Surah Baqarah, or the entire Quran, ayat number 286, which says that bring two women as witnesses and one man. That means what? The witness of one man is equal to two women. Quran is belittling the women. What are you going to answer over there? Or the first ayat of Surah Nisa which says, if you want, marry mathna wa thulatha wa ruba, 2, 3, or 4. And so, well, polygamy is jaiz according to ayat of Quran. What are you going to respond to that? And these are just few examples that a person like me just memorized so I can impress you. There are many such examples like that in Quran. So Quran is probably not the best thing to give to a newcomer. Because if Quran is not understood through the tafsir of Ahlul Bayt, it could be misleading, as was the case in Battle of Siffin. Quran void of Ahlul Bayt, Quran is not sufficient. Rasulullah did say, Inni tarikum fikum thaqalain. I'm leaving behind two, not one. Therefore, the best, you said don't give a Quran to a newcomer. They'll gain access to Quran. Everything's available online nowadays. But what they won't gain access to is something which is the true representation of Islam. So what should we give? In my humble opinion, the best thing you should give to a newcomer, someone who's interested in learning about Islam, definitely not Quran. Give them Risalatul Huquq, treatise on rights. First read it yourself, so you know what it is. Then give it to this your colleague and friend of yours. So they'll learn, they'll be introduced to Islam from the perspective of rights. What does Islam say about your own body parts? What rights you have? What rights your nafs has on you? Your tongue has on you? Your feet and your leg and all these organs have on you? What right Allah has on you? What right your neighbors have on you? What right your parents, your siblings, your brothers, your muazzin, your imam, your subordinate, and those who are above you have on you? These are the rights that are being mentioned in this book, Risalatul Huquq. This is probably the best thing that you can give to someone who wants to embrace Islam. While there are answers to those questions that I posed from Quran, they'll critically look at ayat of Quran and then they'll pose this question. You and I may not be able to answer. You'll say, well, we'll need to speak to Moulana, and Moulana will answer you what it means. That's why Quran is in need of, for us non-Arabs, is in need of a translation every 50 years. Many of you know my marhum father. He used to come here a lot in the 90s. And many of you may have been introduced by some of the books that he has written. One of the accomplishments that he had, that he translated the Quran into Urdu. And when he started working on the Urdu translation of Quran, someone asked him a question. Moulana, there's so many good Urdu translations available. Maqbool Ahmad Saab, Farman Saab, Allama Jawadi's, Mohsin Najfi, and many other translations of Urdu that are available, which all of you, mashallah, would have it at your homes. Why are you translating Quran again in Urdu? What's the need? Reinventing the wheels. Something which is done. Redundancy. You have knowledge, use this to something more applicable to people. So he wrote in the Muqaddimah the reason why he's translating. He wrote in the Muqaddimah the reason why he's translating. He said, not only that I need to translate this Quran should be translated every 50 years. A new, fresh translation is needed of this Quran every 50 years. And look at the dalil. I want you to focus on the dalil. He said, as human beings, we progress. There's always progression happening. As humanity progresses and advances, your mindset changes. From that mindset, when you look at Quran, you look at it differently. And the simplest of the examples, people translated Quran 100 years ago, right? Mullah Faiz Kashani, Sahib Tafsir Safi. My marhum father translated that into 7 volumes as well into Urdu. Mullah Faiz Kashani translated this ayat of Surah Zilzal, the last 2 ayat. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرٍ يَرَى وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرٍّ يَرَى. You all know the ayat. Translation for the children. Whoever does an atom worth of good will see it. Whoever does an atom worth of evil will see it. That's the right? That's the translation. Mullah Faiz Kashani translated it 300 years ago, when there was no television, when there was no recording devices, where there were no camcorders, where there was no concept of DVR, playback, capturing, none of those things existed. But he translated it. He translated it that Allah wrote it in Quran, that we will show you your actions. Atom worth of action, small or big. On the day of judgment, man will say, مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ لَا يُغَادِرُ صَغِيرَةً وَلَا كَبِيرًا. What is wrong with this book? It did not leave out any smallest of the details of my actions. And it documented everything that I've done. But book, people might understand 300 years ago. Seeing was not comprehensible. They would not be able to fathom the fact that something can be seen. There's no camera. There's no surveillance. There's no... Nowadays, a child, a 5-6-year-old child knows that with this phone, you can record, you can save, you can send, you can watch, you can rewatch, you can rerun. All these things are possible. So today, when you read Quran, and you especially read this ayat which says that on that day, on the day of judgment, we will show you your amal on a big screen TV. You're looking at 4K, 8K, whatever the case may be, you'll see the technology that you've never seen before. We'll show you your amal from all different directions. There's no running away from it. You know how when you watch sports, you watch NFL games, sometimes watching it on the TV is better experience than watching it at the stadium, because of all the angles that they're showing it from. Tons of angles. Every single inch is covered. Guess what? Allah has a better technology than that. On the day of judgment, when your amal, good or bad, will be shown from multiple different angles, you'll have no way of running away from it. Guess what? Humans progressed. This progression, this advancement led to understanding Quran better. So that's why 50 years from now, we will even have more advancement in technology. When we are more technologically advanced, 50 years later, again another translation of Quran is needed. Then you'll understand some of the other intricacies of Quran that you still have not been able to understand. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But Quran is mazloom. If it wasn't mazloom, Rasulullah would not say, Ya Rabbi inna qawmi ittakhadu hadha al-Qur'ana mahjura. Oh my Rabb, my people abandoned this book. Let's not be amongst those who abandon this book. Let's be among those who remain connected with this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While we look at and ponder over this hadith of our Prophet who says, Inni tarikum fikum al-thaqalain. We claim that we held on to Ahlul Bayt and we neglected Quran. Our brothers of Ahl Sunnah, they claim that they hold on to Quran and they have nothing to do with Ahlul Bayt. Right? They emphasize a great deal. You find best of the qaris of Quran in the Sunni world. Best of the reciters of Quran. Best of the huffaz of Quran. There's no doubt about that. Now, mashallah, there's an increased effort within our madhab as well, where children are memorizing and reciting it beautifully on all that stuff. But we never focus so much on beautification of recitation of Quran. We focus more on the understanding of Quran. But even then, there's a void that we find. And that is the reason Prophet will be complaining on the day of judgment. Ya Rabbi inna qawmi ittakhadu hadha al-Quran mahjura. Oh my Rabb, my people abandoned this book. Let's not be amongst those who abandon this book. Quran is kitab-e hayat. Don't make it kitab-e mamat. We use it only when someone dies. We use it only when there's a janaza, there's a soyam majlis, there's a chelum majlis, there's a barsi majlis. Quran is recited then. Surah Yasin is recited then. When someone is going on a travel, our mothers will make us walk under the Quran. And then wrap it up and put it on the top shelf. Lest, like the children, keep it out of the reach of children. The medicine says, keep Quran out of the reach of the children. Let the dust settle on it, because one day we might have to do tayammum. Where we're going to find the dust? Right on top of Quran. That's how far we are from this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This book came to guide us. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. You say, well, this book is only guide for muttaqeen. We're not muttaqi. Why not? You should become muttaqi so that this book is a guide for you. And by the way, when Quran says this book is for muttaqeen, does not mean that it is cancelling out anyone else who has access to this Quran. No, only muttaqeen will take heed and understand the ayat of Quran, while everyone else has gained access to it. Anyone can read Quran. Anyone can buy a copy from Amazon nowadays. Anyone can gain access through it online. But will they have an impact of it? No. Only muttaqeen will be impacted by this book. Muttaqeen will pay respect to this book. Just like when it rains. When it's raining here in Southern California, it's not. Rarely rains here, right? When it does rain, it's not prejudice that I'm only going to rain in Anaheim and not going to rain, for example, in another part of the city. It rains equally. When it's raining right here, it rains equally on the desert, on the mountain, on the grass, and on the asphalt. Does it differentiate? No. Let's not rain on the highway. Let's not rain on the desert. Let's not rain on the mountain, only on the greenland. No, rain happens every place. Which one of these four places benefit the most from this rain? The mountains? The desert? The asphalt? No, the green area benefits from it. It reproduces using this rain and returns it back. Same thing is the heart of a muttaqi. While everyone can benefit from this Quran, only muttaqeen are those who utilize this Quran to the fullest. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So let's not separate ourselves from Quran. That's why in book of Al-Kafi by Muhammad Yaqub Qulayni, he writes this beautiful narration associated with our first Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, who said, he said, again regarding this Quran, he said, إِنَّ الْبَيْتَ الَّذِي يُقْرَأُ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ وَيُذْكَرُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فِيهِ. House in which Quran is recited and Allah is remembered often. يُذْكَرُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فِيهِ. What are the effects? تَكْثُرُ barakatuh. You see barakat increase in this house. تَحْضُرُهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Malaika gain access to this house. تَحْجُرُهُ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Shayateen remain far, far away from such houses. You see the benefits of Quran? The mere fact that you recite Quran in this house, three effects. Barakat increase. Don't you always hear, खाना तो कम था लेकिन माशाल्लाह बरकत हो गई. लोग ज्यादा आ गए, बरकत हो गई. कैसे बरकत होगी? खाना तो आपने उतना ही बनाया था. That's what increment in barakat is. Barakat increase. Blessings double and multiply. Malaika gain access. Shayateen stay away from such houses. And Imam added further, he says, وَيُضِيءُ لِأَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ كَمَا تُضِيءُ الْكَوَاكِبْ لِأَهْلِ الْأَرْضِ. You know how this house shines? This house shines like the stars shine for the people of the inhabitants of this earth. When you look up on the sky at night time, you see the stars are shining. When inhabitants of the heavens look down onto the earth, there are certain houses which are illuminated and shining. These are the houses in which Quran is being recited. And then Imam mentioned the averse effect. إِنَّ الْبَيْتَ الَّذِي لَا يُقْرَأُ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنُ وَلَا يُذْكَرُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فِيهِ. A house in which Quran is not recited wrapped up, placed on top of the shelf. Quran is not recited, Allah is not remembered. What happens? Taqillu barakatuhu. Barakat decrease. I'm sure you've heard. अक्सर लोग कहते हैं बरकत ही नहीं है किसी काम में, जो कर लो बरकत ही नहीं होती है. Why? You've heard this. This is usually uttered normally. Even when Allah is bestowing with His ni'amat, people are complaining, oh, barakat hi nahi hai kuch kaam mein. Because we like to complain. Imam says, house in which Quran is not recited, house in which Allah is not remembered, barakat decrease. Tahjuruhul malaika. Malaika stay away far from this house. Wa tahduruhu shayateen. Shayateen gain access to such house. So therefore, let's not make this Quran, let's not make this house to be a visiting place of shayateen. Let's make our houses to be a visiting place of the malaika. And that brings me to this point of ours, where how Quran is not enough. We need Quran and Ahlul Bayt. None of us doubt that. You say, Moulana, we don't need to know this. We know this already. Anyone in the crowd has doubt that Quran is enough? No, we know Quran along with Ahlul Bayt. Both are intertwined. Both are needed. Both need to be together. I'm going to pause for a second so that your attentions are back with me. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more loud Nara Salawat, please. You know, in fact, I'll go to another level. Whenever Quran fails to defend, Ahlul Bayt come in. And this is not, I don't know how to do Dhakiri or Lafazi, and I don't know those things. And this is not, khitabat by any means. I'll go to the extent by saying that when Quran fails to convince, when Quran fails to prove, Ahlul Bayt come and play. Pay attention to the dalil. You've heard this ayat, and this dalil is from Quran. We're not using a hadith that someone might challenge saying, oh, where does this hadith come from? Because today, everybody is a muhaddis. You read a hadith, you say, well, Moulana, where does this hadith come from? It comes from Usul Kafi. Usul Kafi. There are some za'if ahadith in Usul Kafi, sure. Now we need to have a lecture on the authenticity of ahadith. So, Quran, there's no doubt about the authenticity, right? Quran is qat'iyyus sanad, zanniyud dalil. Meaning the sanad of Quran, there's no doubt. It's the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our Rasul presented this Quran as is. We don't believe in any tahrif of Quran. Every single word is intact. Not a single ayat is replaced or changed. Forget the ayat. Not a single harakat is different. From the time Amirul Mu'mineen placed all the harakat on the ayat of Quran. So there's no tahrif. If anyone in Shia believes, it's a very minority belief. The popular stance is there's no tahrif in Quran. We believe in the tahrif of interpretation, but not in the words. Words of Quran are as is that were revealed to our Prophet. With this established, we see this ayat you hear all the time. Surah Al Imran, ayat number 64. Known as ayat mubahala. فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَنِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ وَأَنفُسَنَا وَأَنفُسَكُمْ ثُمَّ نَبْتَهِلْ فَنَجْعَلْ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ. There's an entire majlis on this ayat only. You hear this ayat on the gesture of mubahala. But look at it from this aspect. I'm sure many of my senior and Buzurgan have heard and read it and looked at it from this perspective, but for the children I'm speaking. Look at it from this end. You heard this ayat? The background is the Christians came of Najran, they debated with Rasulullah about what? فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ. When they argue, hajja means when they argue. Fihe, about this ha zamir refers to the previous ayat. The two things that they argued about. Al-Haq or Hazrat Isa ibn Maryam. What was the argument about Hazrat Isa? They said Hazrat Isa is son of God. Na'udhu billah. Rasulullah said, no, that's not it. Inna mathala Isa ka mathala Adam. The example of Isa is like the example of Adam. Khalaqahu min turab. Allah created him from turab. In fact, if anyone should be considered son of Allah, according to your understanding, it should be Hazrat Adam, not Isa. Hazrat Adam was born without a father and a mother. At least Hazrat Isa has mother. They weren't satisfied. The ayat of Quran were recited not by you and I. Ayat of Quran were recited by the Mufassir Ala of Quran, that is our Prophet. Ayat of Quran were recited by the one who received these ayat from Jibreel Amin. This is ta'asir. When someone who is the recipient of these ayat is reciting, as opposed to someone like me reciting these ayat, there's a huge difference. Today, one of our maraji comes and sits on this mimbar and reads an ayat of Quran, it will have a tremendous effect on you than a student like me reciting an ayat of Quran. It's only natural. Rasulullah is reciting these ayat. No effect. What do they agree on? Tomorrow we'll meet and we'll do mubahala. The time was set, the place was set. You hear all this, but you fail to focus in the middle of it. فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. When they argue with you regarding Haqq or Hazrat Isa after Quran, ilm is what? Quran. After Quran has come. When Quran was not able to satisfy them, فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا. At that point, when Quran failed, now tell them to bring your children, will bring our children. You bring your women, will bring our women. You bring your nufus, will bring our nufus. And so that nobody tomorrow doubts who these Ahlul Bayt are. Rasul brought is the misdaq of children, Hassan and Hussein. Misdaq of Nisa, Fatima to Zahra. Misdaq of Anfus, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. So this Ahlul Bayt, when Quran was not sufficient, Rasulullah brought Ahlul Bayt in fact. What happened then? You all know the story. Asqaf Azam looked at the faces that Rasulullah brought with him and said, don't indulge in mubahala and imprecation. Because if you do, you will not survive. Give in to what they're asking from you. And therefore, when Quran was not able to convince the Nasara of Najran, then how do you think Quran is going to go ahead and convince the Christians of today? You need Ahlul Bayt along with this Quran. And it's not just something that the maktab of Ahlul Bayt believes in. It's not something, as I said before, that this is my oratory or this is my khitabat. This is ayn aqidat and this is ayn usul of mazhab Ahlul Bayt. With that said, now that I have recited this ayat, tabarrukan, and I have to mention a few words about it. The ayah says, abna'ana. The word abna is plural. If you know Arabic grammar, there's singular, dual, and plural. Singular, do hai, phir teen plus. 3 plus is plural. Rasulullah said, you bring your children, and we'll bring our children. Rasulullah only brought 2. That means the ayat has gunjaish for more children, but none were recipient of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Arabic, imra'a is 1 woman. Imra'atan is 2 women. Nisa, 3 plus. That means the ayat of Quran has gunjaish that Rasul can bring his wives along, as you say they are Ahlul Bayt, but he chose not to. Because Allah does not want them to be brought here. He only brings his daughter as the misdaq of Nisa. And then when it comes to the nafs, They claim, they say, well, how do you go ahead and say, we understand that Abna were Hassan and Hussein, Nisa was Fatmatu Zahra, but where did Ali come from? How do you consider Ali to be the Nafs Rasul? Nafs means he should bring himself. This is an argument that there is. He said, Nafs of Rasul is who? His Nafs. When I say to you, you bring yourself and your nafs, meaning you're going to come by yourself. Mera nafs, mera jism, mera nafs, there do cheezein hain, dono se milke main bana hu. The answer is no. They say bring yourself and your children. Bring yourself and your women. Bring yourself and your nafs. When you brought your nafs, when you brought your children, you came with them. You brought your women, you came with them. When you bring your nafs, that means nafs Rasul has to be someone other than Rasulullah, and that is the zat of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. فَنَجْعَلْ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ. Then let's send la'nat onto those who are the liars. Quran is giving us the sunnah. Now, we have misconstrued the meaning of la'nat. In Urdu, la'nat is a different thing than the one in Arabic. I'm sure you all know, in Arabic, la'nat means, may Allah keep His mercy away from these people. But in Urdu, la'nat has a different connotation, so don't conflate the meaning of la'nat in Arabic to the la'nat in your language, because then it changes a little perspective a little bit. But this la'nat still has issues with these people. They say, well, why do you send la'nat? The moment we recite Ziyarat Ashura, and inshallah I'll talk about it tomorrow night, there are 18 du'as in Ziyarat Ashura that inshallah if we can focus on it, your next recitation of Dua Ashura will be tremendously different. Inshallah we'll talk about it tomorrow. When we recite Dua Ziyarat Waris, as you recite on Thursday nights, when you recite Ziyarat Ashura on the day of Ashura and other times, when you recite Ziyarat Arba'een, there's a common thread in it, which is Allahumma la'an. Allah send la'anat on so and so. In Ziyarat Ashura, Allahumma la'an awwala zalimin zalama haqq Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa akhira ta'abin lahu. Allahumma la'an Aba Sufyan wa Muawiyah wa Yazid ibn Muawiyah wa Marwan wa ali Marwan ila yawm al-qiyamah. You recite all this. These are all part of Ziyarat Ashura. People have problem with this. A couple of years ago, there was a problem in Pakistan as well. Huge commotion. I remember a few years ago when we were at Hajj, one of our mu'mineen, on the day of Arafat, when the sun is setting, you're supposed to recite dua, he started reciting Ziyarat Ashura. And of course, we were surrounded by all the folks. Some people were there with me. We were surrounded by all these other folks, and people like, are you going mad? There were people from Ahl Sunnah and Wahhabi, from New York, from other places. They heard Ziyarat Ashura, they heard La'an on Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah and so on and so forth. They said, today is a day for you to ask dua for yourself, and you're sending La'anat. This Zaif, this Buzurg of ours responded by saying this is the best day to send La'anat onto them. But then, La'anat is something which is not Urdu La'anat. Keep the La'anat of the one which is Arabic La'anat. So don't conflate between the meaning of it. May Allah keep their mercy away from these individuals. That's what our la'nat is. And that's the la'nat that Allah has given us the permission in Quran. Allah says in Quran, you read Surah Ahzab, ayat 57, 58, if I'm not mistaken. الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَنَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Those who do aziyat to Allah and His apostle, Allah's lanat onto them in this world and in the hereafter. Quran की आयत है, जिन लोगों ने अल्लाह और उसके रसूल को अजियत पहुंचाई, अल्लाह की लानत इस दुनिया में भी और आखिरत में भी. Allah is giving you the permission. So, well, where is the mu'min here? It's only on Allah and Rasul. Those who, अब अजियत का तर्जुमा इंग्लिश में बड़ा मुश्किल है, खास करके अल्लाह के लिए. How can someone harm Allah? Aziyat means to harm, but you can understand harming Rasulullah. That's why Rasulullah said, whoever harms my daughter harms me. Whoever harms me harms Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning what? Whoever is satisfied with my daughter has satisfied me. And whoever has satisfied me has satisfied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you read the very next ayat. We're in this business of reading half and leaving the half behind. The very next ayat of this surah Ahzab says what? After it says, الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَنَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Very next ayat says, الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Those who do adiyah to mu'mineen, they are also the recipient of the la'nat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you harm a mu'min, Allah's lanat is onto you. When you harm Amirul Mu'mineen, you think you're not going to be the recipient of the lanat? Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that I have done justice to the ayat that I recited in the beginning, which I did not talk about, I'll just translate it quickly and a couple of words about it before I bring you to a close. Discussion was about Quran. Discussion was regarding Quran. Discussion was Quran is not sufficient. Discussion was that Quran sometimes could be detrimental, sometimes could be challenging and even damaging when it's not used in proper context. The discussion was, as a humble request, instead of giving Quran to a newcomer, give them Risalatul Huquq, the treatise on rights. Introduce them to Nahjul Balagha. Well, first you need to introduce yourself to Nahjul Balagha. First you need to introduce yourself to Sayfa Sajjadiyah before you can go ahead and introduce it to someone else. Hey brother, read this book. This is from our fourth Imam. You won't be able to explain anything about this book to them because you have not opened it up. So don't keep these treasures locked up in your houses. Open them, keep them with you, learn from it. One segment about Sahifa Sajjadiyah. Fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn Hussein, Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, left this majmu'ah of 54 du'as. 54 du'as. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam was in a situation when he had no support. He lost everyone in Battle of Karbala. All his family members have been killed. Many of the companions are gone. Imam is all by himself. He doesn't have the mimbar. He doesn't have the masjid. He doesn't have the mic. He doesn't have any gathering or following. Imam utilizes this unique method of preaching Islam through du'as. Brothers and sisters, I'm sure many of you have faced challenges in your life. There may have come a time in your life when nothing is going in your way. You lost your job. Family is suffering. Maybe someone died in the family, which was devastating. Maybe some other calamity took your possessions, whatever the case may be. You are physically, financially drained and suffering. And even that to extent spiritually suffering. What do? The easiest thing is to lose hope. That's it. I'm done with it. And right away you lose hope. You fall in despair. Fourth Imam said, Inni la akhafu min dhunubika kama akhafu min qunutika. I'm not afraid of your sins. Allah will forgive your sins. I'm afraid of your despair and hopelessness. Allah will not forgive your hopelessness when you lose hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is coming from an Imam. For 15 years, he's got nothing to work with. Imam could have come back from Karbala, sit idly, because Yazid's not going to touch Imam again. He's learned a lesson. He desecrates the city of Medina, but dares to touch Imam and his family. Nothing happens to Imam and his family when Medina is being desecrated. The year after the events of Karbala. He attacks Kaaba, but nothing happens to Ahlul Bayt. He's learned his lesson. The revolt that happened. Imam could have easily retired, moved down to Florida, as you and I do, and live a life. In fact, he had that opportunity before Karbala. His father did. His father was offered Stay home, do bayat, and nothing will happen to you. That would have been an easy way out. Imam Zain al-Abidin's time is even more difficult. He had, if he's being given this opportunity after losing all his family members, he could just sit home, relax, not do anything. But that's not what Imam is. If you ever lose hope, and if you ever feel despair in your life, and life throws these curveballs at you, learn from the seerah of fourth Imam. How he never lost hope, you should never lose hope either. How Imam, in the most struggling of the time, continued to carve his way onto what he made into 15 years of time. The students like Kumail, the students like Abu Hamza al-Thamali, the students whom Imam taught these du'as, and then they were spread all over the place. You know, the first of the Imams, his janazah is attended by a few people. Hassan and Hussein lifted from the front or the back, and the two angels are lifting it from the front. And Imam is buried. His grave is not known for many, many years until the time of sixth Imam. Imam Hassan Mustafa, his janazah is raised, but what happens to it? The arrows were thrown at it. And we know what happened to the janazah of Imam Hussein. Laid on the plains of Karbala for 3 days. Fourth Imam's janazah is a janazah where the entire city of Medina has come in Shan-e-Shawkat, and there's not an individual there who's not present at the janazah of fourth Imam. There's the same Imam who we hear is bimar, who we hear is in shackles, who we hear is tied down. But look at his courage, that he did not let any of these things stop him, and his courage and his not losing hope is something which is an incentive for you and I. If you ever lose hope, do tawassul to fourth Imam, and inshallah you'll find your way out of it. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let me make another attempt to this ayat that I recited for you, and inshallah I'll bring you to a close. Inshallah, next rest of the matalib tomorrow. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا. Whoever adheres to a religion other than Islam, it will not be accepted. فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Such an individual is amongst the khasireen on the day of judgment. This ayat requires in-depth analysis. First, we need to understand what the word Islam in this ayat is. We need to focus on the word yabtaghi. We need to focus on the word deen, and we need to focus on the word khasireen. Inshallah, if I have your attention, I will bring this tomorrow with your permission, because I won't do justice if I go into all of these segments tonight. Tonight, जैसा कि ये वो अय्याम है जिसमें अहले हरम अब शाम पहुंच चुके हैं, और शाम दिमश्क वो जगह है कि जहां पे इतने मजालिम हुए कि चौथे इमाम ने कभी भी करबला 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 कह के गिरिया नहीं किया, कभी कूफा 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 कह के गिरिया नहीं किया। अगर चौथे इमाम से गिरिया मंसूब है तो अशाम 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 कह के है। मैं कहूंगा मौला, करबला में आपके बाबा को शहीद कर दिया गया, करबला में अब्बास के बाजू चले गए, करबला में अली अकबर के कलेजे में जिगर में खंजर लगा, बर्छी लगी, करबला में अली असगर के हुलकूम में तीर से शोभा तीर लगा। आप शाम 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 कर रहे हैं। शायद यही वजह थी कि इमाम को हम बीमार करबला कहते हैं कि वो करबला में बीमार थे, कूफा और शाम में बीमार नहीं थे। अल्लाह ने मशीयत से उनको करबला में बीमार रखा, इसीलिए हम उनको बीमार करबला कहते हैं। एक रीजन तो ये था कि अल्लाह चाहता था इमामत को बरकरार रखे, इमाम बीमार रहेंगे, वो दुश्मन की जद में नहीं आएंगे, इमामत को यूं बरकरार रखना मंजूर था। उनके ऊपर जिहाद वाजिब ना हुआ, आना चाहते थे बाप की بابا کی نصرت کے لیے جب استغاثہ بلند کیا تھا امام حسین نے حل من ناصر ینصرنا کہہ کے، لیکن امام نے پیچھے ہٹا دیا، کہا ہے میرے فرزند تمہارا باقی رہنا ضروری ہے، امامت کا بقا لازمی ہے، یہ دنیا بغیر امام کے باقی نہیں رہ سکتی۔ ارے شہادت تو آسان مرحلہ ہے جس سے ہم نے گزرنا ہے، جس مرحلے سے تم گزرو گے اللہ کسی شریف کو اس مرحلے سے نہ گزارے۔ ارے تمہیں بہن بیٹیوں کے ساتھ کوفے اور شام کے بازاروں سے گزارا جائے گا، ارے شہید ہو کے تو ہم یہاں دفن ہو جائیں گے، لیکن تم ہر موڑ پہ زباں آنکھیں نیچی کر کے دفن ہو گے۔ اجرکم اللہ، خدا کسی غم میں نہ رلائے سوائے غم آل محمد کے۔ شاید امام کی بیماری کی وجہ یہ بھی ہوگی، اللہ نہیں چاہتا کہ امام وہ درد بھرے مناظر دیکھیں، وہ درد بھرے مقاتل دیکھیں کہ جس میں ان کے بابا کو شہید کر دیا گیا۔ 3 دن کا بھوکا پیاسا تھا، جب زینب تلے زینبیہ سے دیکھ رہی تھی، ایک دفعہ حسین نظر نہ آئے، آتی ہے بیمار امام کو اٹھایا، اے بیٹا سجاد تمہارے بابا نظر نہیں آتے، کہا پھوپھی اماں ذرا پردہ ہٹائیے۔ ارے پردے کا ہٹانا تھا کہ ایک دفعہ کیا دیکھا، بابا کا سر نیزے پہ بلند ہے۔ امام کہتے ہیں السلام علیکہ یا ابا عبداللہ، یعنی امام زین العابدین نے اپنے بابا کی جنگ نہ دیکھی، ان کو شہید ہوتے ہوئے نہ دیکھا۔ ارے کس طریقے سے شبر ملعون نے امام کے سر کو تن سے جدا کیا۔ یہ منازل، یہ مراحل، یہ مناظر امام نے نہ دیکھے۔ اللہ چاہتا تھا کہ زین العابدین کو یہ چیزیں نہ دکھائی جائے۔ ارے جس مرحلے سے گزرنا ہے وہ سخت ترین مرحلہ ہے، اگر بابا کے سر کو کلے کٹتے ہوئے دیکھتے تو شاید برداشت نہ کر پاتے۔ اسی لیے 11 محرم کو جب قافلہ چلا ہے، ایک دفعہ زین العابدین کی نگاہ اپنے بابا کے جسد پہ پڑتی ہے، وہ جسد جو ابھی تدفین نہ ہوئی تھی، حالت غیر ہونے لگی۔ زینب آگے بڑھتی ہیں، بھتیجے کو دلاسا دیا، لیکن امام زین العابدین نے کوفہ کے مصائب جھیلے، ارے شام کے مصائب جھیلے۔ اسی لیے جب واپس پلٹ کے مدینہ آئے تو جب بھی کھانا سامنے آتا الشام الشام کہہ کے گریا کرتے، پانی آتا تو گریا کرتے۔ ایک دفعہ بلال نے کہا مولا آپ تو معصوم ہیں، آپ کو کون دلاسا دے، آپ کو کون صبر کی تلقین دے، آپ دنیا کو صبر کا درس دیتے ہیں، مولا کب تک روئیں گے؟ امام نے کہا ہے بلال تم نے ہمارے ساتھ انصاف نہ کیا۔ ارے یعقوب کا ایک فرزند تھا، چند سالوں کے لیے باپ کی آنکھوں سے اوجھل ہو گیا، اتنا گریہ کیا۔ قرآن کی آیت ہے وَبِيَضَّتَ إِلَٰهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ، ان کی آنکھیں سفید پڑ گئی۔ ارے میرے سامنے میرے گھر کے 18 جوانوں کو بھیڑ بکریوں کی طرح شہید کر دیا۔ الا لعنت اللہ القوم الظالمین وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون انا للہ وانا الیہ راجعون۔ بار اللہ ہمارے سے بات قبول فرما، گناہ گار ہیں گناہوں سے درگزر فرما، اہل بیت علیہ السلام کے نقش قدم سے توفیق عطا فرما، ان کی تعلیمات پر عمل کرنے کی توفیق عطا فرما، امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما، ان کے اعوان و انصار میں شمار کر۔ ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم۔ ماتم حسین۔
آ گئی بنت علی بے ردا